Olympus OMD E-M10 Mark III is a very popular camera. And I made a best settings video before, but today I'm gonna go to the best settings, but a bit deeper. Stay tuned and see what the settings are. Hi there, I'm Peter Forsgaard, an Olympus visionary from Helsinki, Finland. And before we get into the best settings of E-M10 Mark III, please consider to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell so you get notified when there is a new video online. I post 2 videos a week, and remember, my channel is all about Olympus gear and about you getting to be a better photographer. The settings that I'm showing to you is based on Firmware 1.2. It was actually upgraded in March 7th, 2019 when the E-M10 Mark III got a new firmware. The firmware was mainly a bug fixes, so it's nothing major, but the Firmware 1.1 was a bit bigger. For example, RC mode, where you control Olympus flashlights from the camera, and that was a good upgrade for E-M10 Mark III. And a tip for firmware upgrades: remember that Olympus lenses also sometimes gets firmware updates, so be sure to check if your lens also has a firmware update while you're upgrading the camera. And if you have several lenses, you need to check every lens individually by attaching it to the camera, and then attaching the camera to your computer, and check out if there is a upgrade for that particular lens. So be sure to do that. Alright, but let's start with the basic settings first. When you go to the menu, there is a default setting that will show you what the different menu items do. And if you don't want to see the instructions, then you just press the info button and then it will disappear. But then if you want to come back to that setting and figure out, hey, I don't remember what this was, then just press the info button again and it will appear again. I think this is a very handy way of reminding yourself with what the different menu items actually do. And there is a good explanation, but toggling with the info button you can take them off and on. The second basic thing is to turn off the beeping sounds. You can find that from the special menu C2. I always turn the AF illuminator also off. But of course, if you do a lot of photographing in dark conditions, then this might help you or the camera to focus properly and faster. So it depends on where you make your images. But otherwise, usually the beeping sounds and the red light that goes to your target are very annoying, because it might annoy the one that you're photographing. And also, if you, let's say that you're in a concert, or your kid is playing in violin in a concert, and then you start to make images of him or her, and then there is this red infrared light that's been going on in the dark areas there, and I don't think that's a very good thing. It's a lot better to turn it off, and then nobody will notice that you take your images. And if you use the silent shutter, then it's even easier to take kind of like candid images. But remember, sometimes in the dark conditions the AF illuminator will help you or the camera to focus properly. And the third basic thing is to turn on the copyright info in your camera. And there you can type in your name and the copyright holder, which most cases is you. So remember to do that. Then make sure that your camera is recording the best possible JPEG images, or the best quality of images. The default setting for JPEG recording is fine, but you can have it as superfine, which is less compression. The less compression, the better image quality, and if you increase the compression, it will start ruining your JPEG images. So always use the superfine option. For some reason, Olympus has only the fine version as default, so you have to go and change it. And you can change it from the special menu F. And there's one tip that I want to give you about the JPEG. Let's say that you're on a trip and you all of a sudden made more images than you thought. The place was so nice that you took a lot of images, and all of a sudden you realize that your memory card won't last. It will get full before you get back home. And then it might be a good thing to go to the special menu F and record the JPEG images with lower resolution, but still have the superfine compression. And then the file sizes will be a bit smaller, but you still have plenty of pixels in your images, and you will save some space on your memory card. But of course, it's a lot better to just have enough memory cards with you. But sometimes when you get in trouble and don't have enough space, this tip could be a very handful. All of these settings were the basic settings. And now I will go more thoroughly some special settings. And these settings depend on your type of shooting, the way you like to make images of. These are only suggestions that I might do, and I will try to tell you why, because that's something that I've gotten a lot of comments about, that I always forget the why. But I try to remember that now on this video. And before we get into the settings more deeply, I want to explain why this thing is quite important. Of course, I always say in the beginning of my videos that I try to make you a better photographer with these videos. And I think that photography, of course, is a lot more than just gear. But without knowing your gear and setting it up properly, it will be a lot harder to learn photography. So you always have to start. It gets a lot easier to make those images if you have a proper knowledge of your camera, so that in every situation you know what the camera is doing, so that the camera is not kind of like leading the photography, but you are, when you master the camera. That's why I think it's very, very important to understand why I talk about the settings that much. I think it's really important to know your gear. It doesn't matter, your camera, your lenses, your lights, your flashlights, any gear you have, get to know the gear. I will start from the special menu A. AF targeting pad is very handy for choosing the AF point. The E-M10 Mark III has a touch screen, so you can choose the AF point from the LCD. And when you have the AF tracking pad turned on, you can choose the focusing point from the LCD, even though if you are taking images through the EVF. You just move your finger on the LCD and it will move the AF targeting point. Very handy for street photography and very handy to get your AF point exactly where you want it. And the face detection is very, very handy on a feature in the autofocus system. And if you are making images of a person, if there is only one person in the image and you want to focus on his or her face, then use the face detection, because it will only focus on the face. It will find it. And that is very, very handy, because then you can move and crop a bit. The AF point will move accordingly. It will stay on the face. And then there is one extra tip. There is also a possibility to use the eye detection. And that's something that I really recommend using, because if the person has glasses like me, sometimes the face detection might focus on the edge of the glasses, and the eye might be slightly out of focus, especially if you're using let's say the 45mm f1.8 or the 45mm f1.2 Pro lens for portraits. Then I would recommend that you use the eye detection. It will focus on the eye that's closer to the camera, which is usually the eye that you want to focus anyways, and it works really, really good. So remember to try to do that. And reset lens is a very, very handy feature. What it does is, when it's turned on, it will always make the camera to start, or the lens to start, from 14mm after you're turning it on. But if you have it off, then it won't reset the lens. And let's say that you are making portraits and using only the 42mm, then it's very wise to turn the lens reset off. So when you turn off the camera or turn it back on, it will be on 42mm or any other millimeters that you have used the last. And it's a very handy in many situations. But of course, if you're using a lot of 14mm wide angle, then it doesn't really matter, because it will start on the 14mm lens. And from the special menu B, I would change the order of these dials. I would have the exposure compensation on the back dial and the aperture or shutter in the front dial. That's just because I can use the exposure compensation without taking my finger off the shutter button. And I think for me, that is a lot better than changing the aperture from the back wheel. As I said in the beginning, that photography is a lot more than just the gear. And that's why I always have the rule of thirds grid on, so that I can see a grid in my EVF or the LCD. That makes the composition a lot easier. You can place the horizon on the lower or the upper line, and then you can have your subject on either side on your composition. I think that's a handy tool just to make the composition a bit easier. And I have the noise reduction off. If I do any noise reduction, I will do it in post. And if you only take images in JPEG and publish them online, sRGB will do fine. And then the warm color on or off is matter of taste. I like to turn it off, but if you like a bit warmer colors or do not that much post-processing, then you might want to have the warm colors on. But as I said, I want to turn it off because I want to post-process my images and make it warmer if I need to. And I want to control how warm the colors will look. From special menu H, I will turn the EVF auto switch off. I prefer using the button to change from EVF to LCD or the LCD to EVF. I think that's a better way. I don't really like the sensor that's there, because sometimes you know, looking at the images and then all of a sudden something goes too close to the EVF and it will turn off the LCD and turn on the EVF, and then it's I think it's a hassle. But if you prefer doing it the other way, then it's totally fine. The only downside on the E-M10 Mark III is that the switch where you toggle between the EVF and the LCD is positioned a bit odd. It's on the side of the EVF, and it's not very handy place in my opinion. And I will have the touch screen on so that I can use the AF tracking pad if I need to. And the sleep time is one of those that you have to decide yourself. I prefer to have 5 minutes, because the way I'm making images, that I don't want to turn the camera on and off all the time, or when it goes to sleep it takes a bit to wake up, and if there's something happening, you know, I'm gonna miss it because the camera is waking up. But if you're just taking casual images, let's say travel, and you take images every now and then, and you for the sites, but you don't really do any action street photography or something like that, then you might have it on 1 minute, or just turn it off the camera every time you have taken a picture, because that will save you some battery life. And so there is always a downside to having the camera on all the time. It will eat your battery a lot faster. And from the setup menu, I will turn the rec view off. I don't need to see the image right away after I've taken it. It will only block if I take an image and it will show in the EVF. That time when the image is there, I can't see through. Of course, if I press the shutter button, it will go off. But still, I want to see through my EVF all the time, so I don't need to have the image that I just taken to be shown to me right after it. Sometimes when taking images of people as portraits, then I might want to see it, just to make sure that everything is okay, the eyes were open and stuff like that. But otherwise, when a regular shooting, I never turn it on. So that's my recommendation on the rec view. And then there is one more thing that I almost forgot. We go back to this the special menu C1. I will turn on the super control panel. I think super control panel is a lot better than this I think it's a live control, that's what it's called. So I will turn the super control panel. It's so that when I press OK button, and then it's very easy to choose the settings that I want to change from the super control panel. I think this makes the Olympus menus a lot better, because as I said before, the Olympus menu system is a bit messy sometimes, but with using the super control panel, it makes it a lot easier. Did I miss something? Is there anything that you use that I did not mention? Or is there any questions you want to ask about the settings? Please ask them in the comment section down below. Tell me and the viewers also your best settings of the OMD E-M10 Mark III. And you might want to watch these two videos next. But hey, thanks for watching, and bye for now.